Nintendo's September Direct was great. In fact, it was one of the best if you ask me. Not only did we get updates on already released or upcoming games this year, there were furthermore information on special titles in the future and beyond. Just by showing Kirby in the Forgotten Land, this Direct cemented itself as one I will never forget, even if they wouldn't have shown that much. And this is something everyone is most of the time looking for, giving us 1 or 2 extra insights on games that go beyond what they actually promised. I mean, the announcement itself stated information focused mainly on games launching this winter, which is nearly always a lie. Surely no one expected more Breath of the Wild 2 footage or Metroid Prime 4, but they accomplished it to strike a nice balance between upcoming stuff and projects everyone is excited for to see next year. After all, you have to give people some glimpses of what the near future will look like, so in theory, except for personal taste, there shouldn't be anyone really disappointed. In theory. There was actually one surprising absence from the presentation which I was shocked to see nobody seems to talk about, and that is the remake of Advance Wars. Reboot Camp releases in December and is part of Nintendo's schedule, just as well as Mario Party, Metroid Dread or the Pokemon remakes. More particular, it was even more strange to see how fast Nintendo seems to check off approaching releases, with Mario Party only occupying a couple of seconds, Metroid Dread getting a short summarized trailer and Pokemon not even showing up. So I firmly waited to see new information and details about Advance Wars, but that just didn't happen. And you have to wonder why. I mean, if more or less small indie games and other uneventful stuff gets the time to at least shine in between highlights, there surely must be a place for one of Nintendo's classic strategy games, right? The problem I observe here is something I feared Metroid Dread would have been a victim of. Lesser known franchises usually are not that quite lucky to reserve advertisement to the same extent of a Mario or Zelda, which is why they often struggle to sell enough copies to justify multiple installments throughout the years. I'm not trying to say that insufficient publicity is the main reason for a franchise's success or failure. It's only a part of the problem. This is why it makes me all the more happy that Metroid is finally getting the recognition it deserves. People are talking about it, and going by the overall attention it gets, Dread could at long last be the hit the franchise needed all this time. Another example is Fire Emblem, which was on the verge of getting shut down forever but was rescued by proper advertisement and right portrayal to the broader mass. When Advance Wars was announced to get a double pack of the first 2 games with modern graphics, I could not believe my eyes. Although Metroid Dread was unbelievable like nothing else, I think I was more shocked to see that Nintendo wants to give this even more forgotten franchise a proper chance. The will to really convince people was there, with not only the first but second one in one coherent package. Now this per se is nothing too remarkable, after all the second Advance Wars is fairly similar to its predecessor, so why not tying them up? They even treated the game to a short trios presentation and gave it the fair amount of focus a rather forgotten property probably needs. But after the announcement it became oddly quiet. Of course, Wario was about to release and Metroid as well as Mario Party are just sitting on the waiting line to get their time to shine, so it was kinda understandable to hold back a simple remake for the moment. To be honest, I didn't even anticipate that much information during the Direct, something akin to how Mario Party was treated, maybe showing some more gameplay or online functionalities. I understand that it's still a simple remake, but the original games are already old enough so that most people haven't even seen or in some cases heard of the Game Boy games. Apparently the Japanese E3 Direct didn't even show Advance Wars during their segment, which might prove how poorly the game seemed to have sold there. So instead of at least trying to give this game a little more presence or reminding people that it exists, we got nothing. Even people who are familiar with the franchise and kinda look forward for the remake often just simply forget the game exists, which is just a shame. Of course they will sooner or later talk about it, probably after Pokemon releases, but maybe this will be already too late in consideration how close together the release windows are. Another reason why Nintendo should give the remake a fair amount of attention is the general unfair response it sometimes tends to get. As I said, many people aren't even aware that Advance Wars is an old Nintendo franchise and wrongfully labeled the game as indie, or in some instances actually a mobile game. Just look at the critical praise and overall positive reviews nearly every game got in the past. These are top tier strategy games. To be fair, it is kinda plausible to have this initial negative reaction given the fact one might never heard of Advance Wars and are just confused why such an, at the first glance, simple looking strategy game got focused during a E3 Direct. After all, I think the remake is even handled by Way Forward, who are responsible for Shantae and are considered as indie if I'm not mistaken, but that fact should not distract how reputable the first games were. I mean, not everything has to be big budget, and if advertised correctly, Advance Wars could be a top seller for kids who want to dive into a rather challenging genre for a younger age. The game deals with topics like war, but portrays everything in such a friendly and light-hearted manner that parents should be more afraid of what goes on behind the lore of every Kirby game. Ultimately, it just feels so underwhelming to see a beloved franchise coming back only to get zero attention, which can lead to another decade of absolute irrelevancy. The production costs don't seem too high, and selling numbers of 1 million would probably be more than enough to call this project a success, but you can never estimate how returners will do in today's gaming landscape. And you have to always think about the future as well. Surely there's the chance of Nintendo just wanting to deliver extremely nice fan service in bringing back one of their dead franchises, but this should not be the case for a company who wants to earn money in long terms. I mean, Nintendo has already the most interesting catalog of house-made franchises, but it's always nice to have one more place of retreat, right? The Switch has already provided most of Nintendo's series with at least one installment, so instead of just simply keeping up with follow-us, why not fall back on something that could expand the variety of the Switch? Developing a whole new entry of a property which has its best years behind can be intimidating, considering how much risk is involved, so remaking one or two classics helps to gather information how the general interest looks like, and outsourcing this careful experiment to an indie studio, which by nature wants to take care of their projects, is the perfect way to handle the topic. You don't have to occupy your own teams and can concentrate on higher prioritized projects while simultaneously experimenting with something from the past. Metroid Samus Returns is basically the same case, when Nintendo worked with the 4A team to develop a remake just to recognize their talent and giving them the chance to create something completely new. I can see the same thing happening with Reboot Camp, because just by watching the first and sadly only trailer, you can tell how much love is getting into the project. Yes, the art style is kinda controversial for some people, but I think it fits the game just right, and all the charming character animations are just evidence that Reboot Camp is no soulless attempt to trap nostalgics. Eventually, this is all I hope for, that the remake will be a fairly acceptable success and that Nintendo gives WayForward the opportunity to develop a whole new entry. The engine is already done, and just by nature and the overall simplistic gameplay, Advance Wars is not the type of game which devours tons of resources and money. Maybe it doesn't even need to be a huge success. Samus Returns sold probably a little poorly because we never got to see any sales numbers, but it seems like Nintendo just wanted to observe the potential of Mercury's team, which could be the same case for WayForward and their talent for the series. All I hope for is that Nintendo will sooner or later give the remake the attention it needs, even if it's not a system seller and just remains a fan favorite. And if they don't do, you can be sure as hell that I will give the game the fair amount of recognition it deserves and inform people how worthwhile this comeback is going to be. What do you mean I have no viewer base so far and no one will care?